The final preparations for trooping the color were already underway, when one cruel sentence changed everything. Princess Charlotte had been dressed, briefed, and prepared to stand beside her brothers before the nation. Then Catherine heard the remark Meghan had made about her daughter. Within minutes, the princess made a decision no palace advisor had expected. Charlotte would not appear, and when the young royal realized why her mother was leading her away, the celebration turned painfully personal. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine stayed beside Charlotte as tension rose. Trooping the Color, the annual military parade celebrating the monarch's official birthday, was designed to display unity and continuity. For the three children, appearing with William and Catherine carried meaning. The children represented the monarchy's future, and Charlotte had spent days learning where to stand and how to remain calm beneath attention. Then a senior aide brought Catherine a recorded conversation. Meghan had described the young princess as a carefully trained royal display, claiming the child had been placed before the public to strengthen her mother's image. Those words turned a child into a weapon against another adult. Catherine felt the insult land, but anger became protection. Her daughter came first. Charlotte watched an attendant place her ceremonial outfit back inside its protective covering. She asked whether she had done something wrong. The question wounded Catherine more than the remark itself. Her mother knelt, held both of the child's hands, and promised this was not punishment. Charlotte had failed no one. The adults around her had failed to keep their cruelty away. William entered moments later. Catherine repeated the exact words from the recording, and his expression hardened. The prince understood what public judgment could do after carrying it since childhood. When Charlotte asked whether Meghan disliked her, he chose each word carefully. He told her cruel words belonged to the person who spoke them, never to the child forced to hear them. Catherine then gave the household a direct order. Charlotte would not appear on the balcony. The balcony appearance, the formal moment when senior royals greet the public from Buckingham Palace, could be changed. Her daughter's safety could not. No advisor would use the child to answer an adult attack, even if her absence created a national storm. As officials rewrote the plan, William asked one question. Who had carried Meghan's words into the royal household, and why was Catherine meant to hear them before the ceremony? Charlotte had been protected from the balcony, but the decision placed everyone around her beneath a harsher spotlight. To the public, Charlotte was a confident young princess, preparing for another historic appearance. Behind closed doors, she was still a child, trying to understand why strangers judged her smile, her clothes, and even the way she stood beside her mother. Catherine knew that burden better than anyone. William knew it too. Yet Meghan's remark had crossed a line neither parent could ignore. Because this time the target was not an institution, a title, or a tradition. It was their daughter. Catherine had spent years building a careful boundary around Charlotte's childhood. Royal duty, meaning the public responsibilities carried by members of the family, would be introduced slowly, rather than forced upon her all at once. The young princess could learn confidence without believing every smile belonged to the public. She could stand beside George and Louis without losing the freedom to remain a child when the doors closed. William understood why that balance mattered. The prince had grown up beneath relentless attention, learning early that every expression could become a headline, and every private pain could be turned into public debate. He had promised that George, Charlotte, and Louis would never face that pressure alone. Yet now his daughter was asking questions no child should have needed to ask. Charlotte looked toward Catherine and spoke quietly. Did Meghan dislike her? The words stopped her mother cold. She had expected confusion, perhaps disappointment, but not that. The princess realized the conflict had already crossed the boundary she had fought to protect. She pulled her daughter closer and said the remark revealed nothing about Charlotte's worth. It revealed only the anger of the adult who had spoken it. William stood near them, torn between duty and fatherhood. As heir, the person next in line to inherit the throne, He knew Charlotte's absence would trigger questions and criticism. As a father, he knew allowing her to appear immediately after being mocked would feel like asking her to perform through humiliation. He refused to make that sacrifice. Catherine then admitted something she had kept from both children. Meghan's latest remark was not the first. Smaller comments had surfaced before, preserved in documented accounts from private conversations, and dismissed as resentment that would eventually fade. This insult was different. Its wording was sharper, its target clearer, and its arrival just before trooping the color felt calculated. A trusted aide soon confirmed the fear. The phrase had been repeated during a recorded conversation involving someone with limited access to the family's appearance schedule. That meant the timing was no accident. Someone knew exactly when Charlotte would be most exposed and exactly when Catherine would feel the greatest pressure to remain silent. Catherine began reviewing the earlier accounts. One ceremony appeared again and again, tied to the first change in Meghan's tone. The insult had wounded Charlotte in the present, but its true origin lay in a moment months earlier that Meghan had never forgiven. The conflict had not begun on the morning of trooping the color. Its roots stretched back to a smaller royal ceremony that few people had considered important at the time. Charlotte had stepped forward, Catherine had gently corrected her position, and the audience had responded with warmth. Yet one person watching from afar saw something entirely different. For Meghan, that brief exchange became proof that Catherine and her daughter represented the future image of the monarchy, and that her own family had been pushed beyond its frame. Months earlier, Princess Charlotte had attended a private commemorative service with William, Catherine, George, and other senior royals. A commemorative service is a formal ceremony held to honor a person, event, or national memory, and this one was meant to be quiet and controlled. Yet Charlotte was given a more visible place than expected, standing close to her parents as cameras followed every movement. Catherine watched her daughter carefully. The young princess remained calm, but one brief moment changed everything. Charlotte stepped slightly ahead of the procession. Her mother touched her shoulder, whispered a few soft words, and guided her back into position. The child nodded, corrected herself, and continued. The crowd responded with affection, turning the exchange into a symbol of trust between mother and daughter. Meghan saw something else. During a private recorded conversation, she complained that Charlotte was being praised for conduct that would have been criticized had it involved her own children. She said the moment had been shaped to present Catherine as the perfect mother and the young princess as the ideal royal daughter. Her frustration was no longer hidden. It had found a target. Catherine later received a documented account of that conversation from a former communications advisor. The phrase used was rehearsed innocence. She felt the insult deeply, but chose not to answer. The princess believed silence would keep resentment away from Charlotte and prevent another family dispute from becoming public. That decision would later haunt her. William read the preserved account in full. The prince saw that the wording had not appeared suddenly before trooping the color. Carefully trained royal display had first been used after the commemorative service, then repeated again when Charlotte's next public appearance was being planned. The latest cruelty was not a careless outburst. It was part of a pattern. George had stood beside his sister that day and remembered only the applause. Charlotte had remembered her mother's reassuring touch. Yet Meghan had carried the moment forward as proof of everything she believed had been taken from her own family. William closed the account and made his decision. Silence had failed. The past had exposed the motive, but the next confrontation would decide whether the attack ended with an apology or shattered the family beyond repair. William did not enter the conversation as an heir preparing a diplomatic response. He entered as a father who had heard his daughter ask whether she was hated. No advisors sat between them. No carefully drafted statement softened the accusation. Meghan had expected criticism over the timing of her words. She had not expected William to repeat them exactly, place Charlotte's pain at the center of the discussion, and demand that she explain why a child had become a target. William arranged a private call after rejecting the household's advice. The royal household, meaning the staff who manage official duties, communications, and daily palace operations, wanted the issue handled through lawyers and senior aides. The prince refused. He believed distance would turn Charlotte's pain into another file, another statement, another carefully controlled problem that no one truly faced. Catherine stayed outside the conversation. The princess was not afraid of Meghan, and she was not avoiding the truth. She refused to let her daughter's hurt become another public battle between two women. Charlotte had already been dragged into adult resentment once. Her mother would not allow it to happen again. William repeated the remark word for word. His voice never rose. That control made every sentence heavier. He told Meghan that Charlotte had heard enough to believe she had caused trouble for the family. The child had questioned her own worth because an adult had chosen to turn her behavior, her appearance, and her bond with Catherine into weapons. Meghan pushed back immediately. She said the criticism had been aimed at the royal system, not the young princess. She argued that Catherine's public image used family moments to strengthen her position, and that Charlotte had become part of that strategy without choosing it. To her, the remark exposed a machine. To William, it wounded a child. William pushed his chair back and placed both hands on the table. He told Meghan that once a child's name, conduct, and public role were used in an attack, the difference between targeting the parent and targeting the child disappeared. She could not hide behind intention after the damage had already reached Charlotte. Meghan then changed everything. During the recorded call, she revealed that someone connected to the palace had described the trooping appearance as a coordinated effort to present William's family as the monarchy's unquestioned future. She said the information had come from a person who knew the planned positions, the timing, and the message the balcony was meant to send. William went silent. The cruelty had not grown in isolation. Someone inside had fed Meghan a version of the ceremony designed to inflame old resentment. The confrontation had exposed her anger, but it had also revealed a deeper betrayal hiding behind palace doors. Catherine had made the decision as a mother, but keeping Charlotte away from trooping the color required the authority of a future queen. Schedules had already been approved. Security formations had been fixed. Balcony positions had been measured to the smallest detail. Removing one young princess would force every department to adjust. Yet when officials attempted to persuade Catherine to reconsider, she did not raise her voice. She simply closed the briefing folder and made it clear that no ceremony outranked her daughter's well-being. Catherine held no absolute constitutional power over the event, but she controlled whether her children took part. Constitutional power means the formal authority granted by law and royal position, and this decision belonged to the parents, not the palace machine. The princess refused to let Charlotte be treated as an unavoidable public duty. William supported her at once, ending any hope that officials could divide them through separate appeals. A senior courtier warned that Charlotte's absence would dominate the day. He said the public would notice, the media would speculate, and every other moment would be pushed aside. Catherine listened without moving. Then she answered with quiet force. Public curiosity could be repaired. A child's belief that she must smile through humiliation could not. William stood beside her and made the decision final. The prince told the household that no one would pressure Charlotte through duty, reputation, or fear of headlines. His support mattered, because the withdrawal now carried the united authority of both parents. No advisor could call it a temporary reaction. No official could pretend Catherine had acted alone. Charles read the revised appearance plan in private. The king set it down without speaking. He understood the danger. Trooping the color was meant to show unity, and Charlotte's absence could make the monarchy look fractured. Yet he also knew the deeper cost of placing national stability on the shoulders of a child already wounded by adult cruelty. Catherine returned to Charlotte's room and found her folding the gloves she had planned to wear. The sight broke through every layer of royal control. Her mother sat beside her and promised they would spend the ceremony together, away from the pressure and away from the cameras. Charlotte asked whether everyone would be angry. The princess told her no ceremony was worth fear. Charles then approved the revised plan and ordered an internal review. The investigation would examine how private details about the children's roles had reached someone outside the working household, meaning the family members and staff carrying official royal duties. But the damage had already escaped. Before the review could begin, a false version reached the media. Charlotte had not been protected, the story claimed. She had been punished for making a mistake. Catherine had secured her daughter inside the palace. But beyond its walls, a far more dangerous story was already spreading. By the time the palace realized what had happened, the false explanation had already escaped. Charlotte had not been protected from public embarrassment, the story declared. She had been removed because she could not be trusted during the ceremony. The lie was cruel because it sounded believable. It transformed Catherine's act of protection into an act of discipline. And when William saw the headline appear on a phone left inside the family sitting room, he understood that silence was no longer shielding his daughter. William read the first reports in disbelief. Some blamed a disagreement over protocol, meaning the formal rules that guide royal behavior and ceremonial order. Others claimed Charlotte had become too unsettled to appear, or might distract from the central event. The palace had described her absence only as a private family decision, hoping restraint would protect her. Instead, that restraint created space for the harshest version to spread. Charlotte saw the screen before an aide could remove it. She caught only part of the headline, but it was enough. The young princess looked at William and asked whether people believed she had been bad. Her father abandoned the careful explanation he had prepared. The prince told her plainly that she had done nothing wrong, and that adults were twisting the truth because they did not know what had really happened. Catherine heard the question from the doorway. The princess had believed silence would keep Meghan's words away from her daughter. Yet silence had allowed the child to carry the blame instead. Her grief hardened into anger. She told William they had to correct the lie without repeating the insult and without making Charlotte relive the cruelty in public. William agreed, but the danger was growing. Every hour without a clear answer made the false story stronger. The future king knew public memory could turn speculation into accepted truth. And once Charlotte became known as the child removed for misbehavior, no later explanation would fully erase the wound. Charles received the misleading report during a private briefing. The king removed his glasses, placed them on the table, and spoke with unusual sharpness. The monarchy would not protect its dignity by allowing a child to carry an adult's wrongdoing. He ordered the household to abandon its vague language and support a direct response. The internal review then uncovered something darker. A documented trail connected the punishment story to the same intermediary who had transmitted Meghan's remark. The leak and the insult had not been separate accidents. Someone had first provoked the family, then supplied the public with a false explanation designed to deepen the damage. Catherine began drafting a statement, but stopped before approving it. The princess asked for one private conversation with Charlotte first. Defeating the headline was no longer enough. Her daughter had to understand that the next decision belonged to her. The palace was ready to fight the false story. But Catherine knew the most important verdict belonged to the child sitting quietly beside her. For the first time since the crisis began, there were no advisors, no statements, and no royal schedules in the room. Only Catherine and Charlotte remained. The mother who had removed her daughter from the ceremony now faced a more difficult task, explaining why cruelty from an adult had been allowed to change the child's day. Catherine expected tears. She expected fear. What she did not expect was Charlotte's quiet request to choose for herself what happened next. Catherine sat close and told Charlotte the truth, without repeating the cruel remark. She explained that no child should be required to perform for the public immediately after being hurt by an adult. Public duty, meaning the formal responsibilities carried out before the nation, could wait. Her daughter's sense of safety could not. The princess made one point clear. This decision had never been caused by bad behavior. Charlotte listened, but the pain remained. She admitted that watching her outfit being put away had made her feel ashamed. The young princess believed George and Louis would continue without her, while everyone else assumed she had failed. She had not feared missing the balcony as much as she feared being remembered as the child who was removed from it. Catherine felt the weight of that confession. Her instinct had been to protect, but she now understood that protection could feel like exclusion when the child had no voice. The mother admitted she had acted quickly because anger and fear had taken control. She had wanted to close every door before Meghan's words could cause more harm, yet in doing so, she had made Charlotte feel powerless. Charlotte reached for her hand. She said she still did not want to appear that day. The balcony, the formal platform where the royal family greets the public, now carried too much pressure. But she also refused to let one cruel sentence decide whether she attended future ceremonies. She wanted the choice to belong to her, not to Meghan, the media, or the palace. Catherine promised it would. The princess told her daughter that she would return to public duty only when she felt ready. No official schedule would force the moment, and no headline would define it. Charlotte's absence was no longer a symbol of defeat. It had become a boundary drawn by the family. William entered after the conversation and heard Charlotte's decision directly. The prince told her he was proud, then agreed with Catherine that the palace statement must tell the truth. It would not describe their daughter as hidden, punished, or withdrawn. It would say her parents had chosen her well-being over performance. Charlotte had reclaimed the meaning of her absence, and now the world would be forced to see the decision through her family's eyes. When the balcony doors opened, one absence was more powerful than every uniform, medal, and wave displayed before the crowd. George stood beside William. Louis remained close to Catherine, but Charlotte's place was empty. Within seconds, the nation understood that the change was deliberate. Then the palace released its explanation. What had begun as speculation over a missing young princess became a larger debate about childhood, duty, family protection, and the price demanded from children born into royal life. William approved the official statement moments before its release. The palace statement, a formal message issued on behalf of the royal family, confirmed that he and Catherine had jointly removed Charlotte from the appearance after an inappropriate adult comment created severe emotional pressure around her participation. The wording was careful, but its meaning was unmistakable. Their daughter had not been punished. She had been protected. Catherine insisted that Meghan's exact words remain private. The princess would not repeat the cruelty simply to win public sympathy. Yet the statement directly rejected claims that Charlotte had misbehaved, lacked preparation, or caused the altered ceremony. Her mother understood why that correction mattered. A false story repeated often enough could follow a child for years. The reaction split the country almost immediately. Supporters praised Catherine for choosing motherhood over ceremony, while critics argued that removing Charlotte had given the insult greater power. Some claimed a private family conflict had now become a constitutional spectacle, meaning a personal dispute had disrupted an event tied to the public image and continuity of the crown. Meghan watched the coverage shift with growing unease. The discussion no longer centered on her criticism of royal image-making. Broadcasters focused instead on the pain caused to Charlotte and the pressure placed on a child. For the first time, she heard her words described not as defiance, but as cruelty with consequences. Outside Buckingham Palace, one moment changed the mood. A mother lifted her young daughter onto her shoulders as the crowd began chanting Charlotte's name. Others joined until the sound carried across the gathered public. Broadcasters replayed the chant beside the empty balcony position, and the absence became more powerful than any official explanation. Catherine later saw the evening newspaper. Its front page showed her holding Charlotte's hand, beneath the headline, "A Princess Before a Performance." The message cut through the debate. The young royal had not disappeared because she was weak. Her parents had drawn a line because she was worth protecting. William understood that public opinion had shifted, but the final decision remained unfinished. The question was no longer whether Charlotte should have appeared. It was what Meghan's words would cost, and what permanent boundary the monarchy would place around its children. The crowd had delivered its answer, but the family still had to decide what Charlotte's absence would forever change. The final consequence was not exile, revenge, or another dramatic royal announcement. It was a boundary. Charles, William, and Catherine agreed that no private dispute, media campaign, or family resentment would again be permitted to use the royal children as emotional weapons. Meghan's remark had removed Charlotte from one historic appearance, but it also forced the monarchy to confront an uncomfortable truth. Tradition becomes indefensible when preserving its image requires a child to absorb the cruelty of adults. Charles approved stronger restrictions on the circulation of schedules, briefing notes, and personal information connected to George, Charlotte, and Louis. Briefing notes are private documents used to prepare royal family members for official events, and access to them would now be tightly controlled. The king understood why the change mattered. A child's routine had been turned into a weapon once. It would not happen again. William and Catherine then established a permanent rule. Any future appearance involving their children would remain a parental decision, not an automatic obligation controlled by ceremony planners or public expectations. The prince supported the boundary without hesitation. He had spent too much of his own childhood learning what happened when duty was allowed to speak louder than pain. Meghan received the final message through a recorded private call. William told her that any future communication attacking, judging, or analyzing the children's behavior would end the remaining private contact between the two households. She was not threatened with public punishment. She was given something more serious, a direct limit with no room for debate. Catherine returned to Charlotte with the truth stripped of royal language. The princess told her daughter she did not have to forgive the remark immediately. Forgiveness could not be demanded, especially from a child who had been humiliated by an adult. But Charlotte must never carry shame for words chosen by someone else. That burden belonged only to the person who had spoken them. Later that evening, Charlotte opened the wardrobe where her trooping outfit had been placed. She touched the sleeve, then closed the door gently. The young princess told her mother she would wear it another day, when the choice belonged to her. Catherine understood then that the withdrawal had not broken her daughter's confidence. It had protected it long enough to return. The truth was now complete. Catherine's decision had never been a retreat from royal duty. It was a declaration that Charlotte's humanity mattered more than the appearance of a perfectly controlled family. The monarchy emerged changed, but not weakened. By choosing the child over the performance, William and Catherine proved that the crown's future would not be protected through silence, endurance, or forced smiles. It would be protected through loyalty inside the family itself. Charlotte did not stand on the balcony that day, yet her absence delivered the clearest message of the entire ceremony. The future of the monarchy would no longer be built by asking its children to suffer quietly.